that are in Australia's national interest.
Joining me now in the studio is Labor MP Michael Danby. Before we get to the big issues at play here, Julie Bishop has hit back at Tanya Plibersek today, saying that she described Israel once as a rogue state and its then Prime Minister Ariel Sharon as a war criminal. Do you take exception to that?
Well, I objected to Tanya at the time, but I'm sure Julie Bishop did things with asbestos that 15 years ago that she'd rather not.
But we are talking about this issue, and it wouldn't be the first time that politicians' words have come back to haunt them, and it does highlight maybe Tanya Plibersek's underlying feelings about what's going on in the Middle East.
Tanya is now the Deputy Leader and Foreign Minister, and she has referred, along with the Labor opposition, Julie Bishop's lifting of sanctions on Iran to the Senate Foreign Relations Committee. That's what Julie Bishop is really upset about, because we had 3 debates going into the sanctions on Iran. We've had no debates in Parliament coming out, and she's very upset with Labor that we're going to have a public inquiry into the lifting of sanctions on Iran on the very day, announced on the very day that the Iranian Foreign Minister arrives in Australia.
What are you saying, that now that she's Shadow Foreign Minister, she's just more careful with her words and doesn't have to be, and has to toe the party line essentially? No,
I'm saying that what someone said as a newbie 15 years ago, people develop, people mature, people are aware of all of the subtleties. Anyone who looks at Tanya Plibersek's record in the last few years, especially her role as Deputy Leader and Foreign Minister, would see that she's a person who represents mainstream Labor views, and I don't think anyone in Australia would be critical of her except the Foreign Minister, who's scared of her opposition on a whole range of issues.
Michael Danby, in that vein though, countries develop and countries mature as well. We are engaging with Iran. What is wrong with that?
Good riposte, Laura, but the problem is Iran hasn't changed, and I want Australia to be Australia. Look, I can understand people don't have the doubts that I have about the nuclear arrangement with Iran, but not every country has remained silent since then. Foreign Minister Bishop has chosen the road of deafening silence in response to 3 ballistic missile tests that Iran has done in
we do back
October.
the UN in, and the UN has responded quite strongly.
The United States, France, many other countries have condemned these ballistic missile attacks.
And Julie Bishop, just to be fair, and sorry to interrupt you, has said that she's going to raise it directly with the Foreign Minister. He hasn't even arrived yet. He arrives tomorrow.
No, but previously, any of these violations of international norms that Iran was involved in, Julie Bishop was out there vociferous in condemning them. Since the nuclear deal, she's remained silent on these ballistic missile attacks. The latest one was so outrageous that it had "Israel must be wiped out" written on the side of the missile. Now, that wouldn't give people in Australia or the United States or France or Germany or the United Kingdom assurances that the Iranians are sort of normal, level-headed country that we can just business as usual with.
But let's go back to this issue between Australia and Iran. There looks like an asylum seeker deal done. The nuclear issue, yes, is very high on the list, but what is wrong with engaging and having the dialogue opened? The alternative is, I guess, shutting Iran out, and that's not a better alternative, is it?
Yes, but there's no reason to be weak. I mean, one can have a dialogue about asylum seekers. It's very interesting that the Iranian ambassador on Friday ruled that out, by the way. But one doesn't need to be silent. One doesn't need to be abject. One needs to reinforce Australian values. One needs to stand up for democracy. We normally in the past, if Iran ran a competition, as it did in November, an official competition run by the Iranian government, mocking the Holocaust, mocking the genocide during the Second World War, Australia would have said, this is not a way for a responsible international citizen to behave. And all I'm saying is, I want Australia to be Australia and get back to those kind of values. I'm not saying that Julie Bishop can't have negotiations with Iranian government ministers, even try this long shot of returning asylum seekers. I don't think it's going to happen, and all of this will have been for nothing. So I think let Australia be Australia. That's my attitude.
Michael Danby, no one is denying, and Julie Bishop is not denying, that Iran has a pretty shocking human rights record. It does persecute minorities. It has a long way to go. Even Javed Zarif has admitted that in New Zealand in just the last couple of hours, but he is Western-educated, very articulate member of the Iranian government, and he's wanting to engage with Australia. So whilst this is slow progress from Iran, do you welcome at least that slow progress, and do you encourage that?
Well, I encourage any government speaking to any other government, however bad I think that government is. I think it's we've all been minimising, because we've been trying to promote this Iranian nuclear deal, how bad the Iranian government is. At the moment, Laura, around the Sunni city of Aleppo, with 300,000 people in it, Iran and Hezbollah surround those people. It's being carpet bombed and they're fleeing into Europe. Now, normally we would have said something about that.
Aren't they our loose allies in Syria? Because they are fighting against ISIS as well.
Well, we're not supporting the Assad government or its Iranian or Hezbollah backers.
No, but it's a very complicated web in Syria at the moment.
It may be, but Hezbollah is officially classified by the Australian government as a terrorist group, and therefore we should be saying things about this. For instance, the Australian Navy, while Julie Bishop is making nice with the Iranians, captured 2,000 small arms in a boat on its way to the insurrection in Yemen from Iran. We should say something about that.
We keep on coming back to this point, and you have pointed out 3 incidents in which Julie Bishop hasn't spoken out. Is she expected to comment on every misstep that Iran makes?
No, she's not. But we condemned the North Korean ballistic missile test because of their threat to international order. All I'm arguing is consistency. I wouldn't say that necessarily she would have to say all of the kinds of things that she said before. Australia had a very strong record of speaking out about Iran prior to the nuclear agreement, but she should have at least said something about these ballistic missile tests, because we look weak. Why would the Iranian foreign minister come and negotiate an asylum seekers arrangement with us when we've been so weak on all of these international issues that even the Americans have said something. Even Obama put new sanctions on the individuals who conducted those ballistic missile tests.
Just finally, would you have any problem with closer economic and business ties with Iran in the future, or would you put some serious caveats on that?
Well, the opposition is going to put some serious caveats on it. We're asking that there be a public inquiry before the Senate Foreign Affairs Committee to see whether any of these potential exports to Iran have dual use. In other words, could be used for weapons manufacture in their nuclear weapons program that Iran has.
What are the exports in Iran that could be used in that
well, Senator Faulkner banned 3 lots of machine tools and technology when we did have sanctions on Iran 3 years ago. So it's possible that some Australian manufacturers do have that capability, or exporters. After all, we've got some fellow working in North Korea against the sanctions who operates out of the Gold Coast.
Okay, Michael Danby, well, we'll see what happens with this visit over the next couple of days. We thank you for your time this evening.
Thanks, Laura.
And a quick break here on The Latest. We'll be back with more after the break, and we'll be